and welcome to the A to Z Sports Big Orange Podcast. I am Charlie Burris. That is Zach Reagan. Wherever you listen throughout the world, we thank you for listening to us. We talk everything Vols every week here on the Big Orange Podcast. If you want to listen to that on the regular, go over to the A to Z Sports Podcast Network feed on Apple or Spotify. When you get there, rate, review, but most importantly, you got to subscribe, because if you do subscribe, you won't miss our shows when we drop them on Monday. Speaking of Mondays, it is one right now at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. That means we're also live on YouTube. Go over to the A to Z Sports Tennessee Volunteers YouTube channel and subscribe there. We just passed 3,000 subscribers. Thank you to everybody who has been tuning in and hanging out with us. But if you go there, obviously subscribe, but hit that notification bell, because then you'll be notified when we go live, because sometimes we go live at different times. Sometimes there's emergency shows. I mean, with Tennessee sports, you literally never know. So you can be notified when we go live and never miss a show if you hit that notification bell. At Charlie_Burris, at Zach TNT, at A to Z Sports. Facebook.com/A to Z Sports Nashville, and AtoZSports.com for everything Zach writes on the internet. Oh boy, Zach. Just never a normal week around here. Can't do it. Not ever gonna do it. It's not an option when you cover Tennessee sports. Obviously, last week was absolutely ridiculous with all that. Was when the Nico stuff was fresh. Now some of it has sort of panned out. Nico officially, as of yesterday, official on Instagram, he commits to UCLA. It took a while for that deal to actually be ironed out. And then now Tennessee, for the last week, has been on the hunt for a quarterback. And Zach, we're going. If you just looked at Twitter, Tennessee's going back to the dark ages. This coming year is a 2-win season at most, frankly. Tennessee will lose every game in the SEC by 40 plus. It's all over. It's gone. You might as well just fold up the entire program. Again, that's if you had looked at Twitter this week, that's probably what you would think of Tennessee football. So nobody's panicking. Everything's normal. Everybody's okay. It's all good. What's up, Zach?
I feel like at the end of every show, we talk about hey, hopefully nothing crazy happens this week. And it feels like it's something that we just say, but there's meaning behind that every single time, because
oh my God,
you just never know. And this is just further proof. I mean, we've been doing this show since 2020, right around the time COVID broke. And just in that short amount of time, the amount of craziness that we've dealt with, from the Pruitt stuff to, the Nico stuff now, NCAA investigations, lawsuits with the NCAA, private jets, and all these different things. It's always a wild ride with Tennessee. They keep things entertaining. I mean, at this point, it's like, nothing can surprise us at all. No. And but that's kind of what makes it fun and compelling too. So it's it turned what was going to be a kind of mundane offseason into suddenly probably the most compelling offseason in the entire sport. Because as of right now, we have absolutely no clue who the starting quarterback is going to be when Tennessee plays Syracuse in late August.
And obviously, that is what we will be talking about on tonight's show. We're going to dive into everything that we've seen, heard, put our ear to the ground and found out from the transfer portal. The thing is, I think you even look at a VolQuest right now. A lot of people over there are kind of in the dark as to where Tennessee has exactly gone in this search, what exactly has panned out. And we'll talk about why there's a reason for that. Obviously. I mean, some of that you can put 2 and 2 together there. But we'll talk about the very secretive process that's gone down so far. And then we'll talk about the very good news that Tennessee basketball got, on the flip side. Another program at Tennessee got some of the best news in the history of the program on the recruiting front. And Nate Ament commits to Tennessee basketball, the highest-rated recruit to ever lock it in with Tennessee. We're going to discuss that, too. And then speaking of people panicking around Tennessee sports, baseball loses the series to Kentucky, which just throw me off a cliff. Not great. The first time in Vitello's entire tenure at Tennessee that the Volunteers have lost back-to-back home series. Now, granted, in between the two home series loss, there was also a top 10 series win on the road in Oxford, Mississippi, but still, I think there's a discussion to be had that this weekend series takes the talking points beyond, it's just baseball. Funny things happen in baseball. I think it's probably a little more serious than that. So we're going to talk about all of that and more on tonight's show right after I tell you about the good folks at Zen Sports. You know about Zen Sports if you've been listening to this show. But if you don't, it is time to download their app. When you sign up for Zen Sports, you'll get the $100 no danger first wager. When you place your first bet in Zen Sports, you can be reimbursed for the amount of your bet up to $100 if that bet loses. No other sportsbook offers you a premier sports betting experience with 24/7 top-tier customer support and faster withdrawals like Zen Sports. And there's even more big news. NCAA baseball is now live on Zen Sports. Go get in on this action. Download their app at zensports.com today. Zen Sports. Betting just got better. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older in Tennessee to bet. Zen Sports, they're going to be getting a facelift here soon. We'll talk about that in the next few weeks. All righty. Tennessee football, as they are wont to do, is the center of the college football world. Because of all of this Nico nonsense. I mean, I guess we can touch on what actually happened with Nico. I mean, we got comments even a week ago on our show that was like, we need to move on. Stop talking about this. It's over. Forget about Nico. And to those comments, look, I get it. This has gotten talked into the ground this week, but also it's one of the biggest sports stories of the year. It's the biggest sports story in sports pretty much, period, still at this moment. And so, I mean, look, we got to talk about this stuff. But I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm not going to if anybody's feeling that way, we can make it quick, Zach. He commits to UCLA, as was rumored for all this time. Basically, from the second he left, UCLA was a main player. And if you want anything litigated from before that, we did all that last week. But he ends up getting locked in with UCLA, but reportedly, supposedly, allegedly, is making a fraction of what he made at Tennessee. Over $1 million still, 7 figures, maybe $1.5 million, something like that. But with California taxes, the lifestyle upcharge of California, you got to think that probably goes down to $700,000-ish, $600,000, still an extravagant amount of money for a 20-year-old kid. But man, this guy we already said it. We didn't want a career to be ruined here. Very much so. This kid does not deserve that. But man, he made a misstep here. Even if he ends up having a good season this coming year at UCLA, which I suspect probably won't be the case because that roster is not very good. But man, what a screw up on specifically his father's part.
Yeah, I think now that we're a little bit removed from everything happening and all the information that's been out there, I think we can kind of go back and really, at least from my point of view, piece together exactly what happened real quickly. My view of how this all transpired. I still believe that Nico never wanted to leave Tennessee. I think that message he posted on Sunday to his Instagram when he announced his UCLA commitment, it was the right way to approach that. If you're him, I think he handled that the right way. Was pretty positive in it. Was positive about his time at Tennessee, and he mentioned that he made the move and made this decision sooner than he ever expected to, or however he worded it. From my point of view, I think this went back to his camp. Yes, pushing for more money. You're seeing Carson Beck did this money in Miami and these other quarterbacks going all over the place and just these crazy amounts that are being reported and nobody knows what's real and what's not. I think his camp thought that they could push for some more money. I think there was some truth to the offensive line and wide receiver stuff because you want your quarterback to be surrounded with the best talent possible. I mean, we saw that in the Ohio State game. Will Howard is not QB1 in this draft, but he's the guy that won the national championship because of what was around him. So I think that was part of it. And then I think, Nico's playing, doing his thing, and the camp is maybe going around trying to get offers from Oregon or whatever other school, trying to get a legitimate offer to bring back to Tennessee. Say, hey, they would give us this much. We're going to need this to stay here, or we're going to enter the portal. Maybe they did that in December. Tennessee didn't budge. They continued to do it through the offseason. This story gets leaked. Nobody knows really who leaks it. Everybody's denying leaking it. Tennessee's side says they didn't leak it. Nico's side says they didn't leak it. I think going into that weekend before the spring game, I think Nico still wanted to figure out how to get through this, and then the thing just blew up, right? Like at some point, Nico's camp decides to say, hey, don't go to practice Friday. The whole thing falls apart, and I don't think that was like the plan. It just fell apart, and this was why you have professional agents to handle this kind of thing, because you do it in a certain way. We're not going out there negotiating multi-million dollar NIL deals because we've never done it before. Like you don't have any experience. You don't know what to do, what buttons to push, when you can withhold information, when you can fib a little, which I think there was some of that going on as far as, offers that they said they were getting. And the whole thing just blew up in their face. And Tennessee has to still run the program. Josh Heupel has 100 other players on the roster. He can't, make special circumstances for this one player. So it's just kind of unfortunate the way the whole thing went. And, at this point, I think the best thing to do is you just hope the best for Nico. He's 20 years old. He's still learning a lot about life, right? I mean, he's navigating this stuff for the first time. And I'm sure there's a lot of lessons that he probably learned from this incident that is going to help him in his future career, however that pans out. Tennessee's side of it, now you got to figure out who's going to play quarterback for you. You got to hope, so far they haven't lost anybody major to the portal. The spring window's not over yet, so that could still happen at any time. We know that nothing's a given, and especially once you get towards the end, that's kind of when you have some leverage. You can say, I'm going in if you don't fix this today, kind of deal. So I think near the end is when you kind of got to watch for some of those names to maybe start popping up. But so far, I think Tennessee's doing a good job of managing this whole situation as best they can. It's not an ideal situation for Josh Heupel, and he's the first coach in college football to really ever go through this, right? You're coming off a playoff appearance. Your returning starter exits the program the day before your spring game, and you don't have an obvious replacement. We have names and backups, and we'll talk about all that here in a little bit, but you just don't have an obvious guy to hand the ball over to. You don't have Arch Manning sitting there. If this was Texas and Quinn Ewers a year ago, it's like, oh, okay, well, you got Arch Manning. It just moves his date up a little bit. That's not the situation here. So it's, it's a tough spot for Heupel, but I think he's doing a good job of it so far. And it'll be interesting to keep an eye on Nico this year, even though people will say we don't want to hear about what he's doing. Everybody's going to be keeping an eye on what he does at UCLA, no matter what anybody says on a Facebook comment page.
Without a doubt, if he does poorly, Tennessee fans will dunk on him. Is it nice? No. Is it understandable? I mean, yeah. And then if he does really well, I think your outside detractors who hate Tennessee will dunk on Tennessee in that case. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Again, I suspect, he's going to such an inferior team. And it's not that I think that Tennessee's roster is just a magical, extremely talent-filled set of dudes. They're good. I just think UCLA's set of dudes is that bad when you really break it down.
It's such a weird decision for UCLA, right? Like Nico didn't have a lot of options because most programs that are going to compete this year, right? Teams that think they can either make the playoff or win 9 or 10 games and have a really good season. They've got guys, they've got guys that they're trusting to start. If they don't have a guy, they're down to like 2 guys. And they feel pretty good about either one of them. They'll see how it plays out in the fall, like Alabama, with Ty Simpson and that situation, or even like Colorado with Caden Salter and their freshman Julian Lewis. Like you would think maybe Colorado would have been a potential destination for Nico, but they were off the board pretty quick when Deion tweeted about it on Master Sunday that they weren't going to take him. They weren't interested in that because you would just throw chaos into that quarterback room. UCLA had a guy has now entered the portal today, Joey Aguilar, who we'll talk about for Tennessee here in a bit. His teammates liked him. Supposedly had a really good spring after playing at Appalachian State last year, and you just kick him to the curb for a complete unknown coming into a new offense. And I feel like you're making that move because of the name, who Nico is, how he was rated as a quarterback, based more on how you think he's going to fit into your offense and how he's going to lead your team, which there was already question marks about that. And that's not a shot at his character, but he admitted this spring that being a vocal leader and being that leader was not something that came naturally to him. And he was starting to get more comfortable with it at Tennessee. This was going to be his third year at Tennessee. Now you're going to go across the country to a new situation where you're already now the most scrutinized quarterback in the sport because of what happened, and try to lead that room. I think this is a sign of a young coach in Deshaun Foster who hasn't been around a lot of these situations, who's still trying to figure out how to make a splash at UCLA, and just thought, we'll go get the big name, not really thinking about how it's going to work out. So he's lucky UCLA was there, because I don't know what other options would have been there for him. I mean, I'm sure somebody would have taken him for depth and to compete. But as far as guaranteeing him a starting job, I think that's probably the only place in the country that was going to do it and give him, some amount of money.
Yeah. Realistically speaking, if he would have jumped ship back in December, the market is way better.
Oh, yeah.
At that point. Not nearly as many set-in-stone rosters. The SEC teams could have been in the bidding war there, and now they couldn't. So you eliminated some of the most resource-rich programs in America that way. And, as you already said, if this dude just has a half-decent real agent, then either he's still Tennessee's quarterback, or he would have left back then for some fat paycheck. And it's just sad for him. There is definitely an element of like, buddy, you kind of got what you had coming to you.
Yeah.
Realistically, I hate to say that, but it is.
Realistically, if you had a good agent, I think anybody's going to play for a little bit more money, just because that's the market. I mean, you can like it, not like it. I don't think any of us love it, right? Like, we don't love the way this is going. You should have a contract. And like Elias here, that's kind of where I was going at. What Elias says here, a competent agent probably gets him $3 million. You might have got that from Tennessee. When you start pushing this absurd number up there, and maybe that was their goal, I don't know, but maybe they thought, well, we'll set the market $4 million and we'll meet in the middle somewhere. And that's not the way that negotiation was going to work out. That's not the way Tennessee wanted to play it. And they just totally mismanaged that from the start there in December. And it sounded like the situation just deteriorated. But, now we're at a point where they've parted ways. That part's done. And now Tennessee's got to figure out what they're going to do moving forward in this quarterback room that has just 2 scholarship guys on the roster.
Ben says, why are people like Tony Basilio acting like Heupel could have done anything differently after Nico agreed to stay on after December? These coaches cannot plan for irrational behavior. It's a fair point. I said it last week. In my opinion, there is a reason that this stuff has continued to happen at Tennessee. And kind of, do I have exact details of why that is, down to a pinpoint of like, oh, it's this dude that keeps screwing it up? No, it's nothing like that. I think there's a reason that this stuff continues to happen. I mean, Nico is not the only guy that has tried to sort of hold Tennessee over a barrel, so to speak. And
it is happening at other places though too. I mean,
it is
like the Oklahoma guy with David Stone went in on Friday, went into the portal on Friday, and by Sunday he's back at Oklahoma. Clearly a negotiation tactic. It's I think everybody's learning how to deal with this stuff. And, maybe it's something to do with Tennessee's NIL collective and the way they handle negotiations. Every NIL collective, I think, is handling this different, because you've got all sorts of different levels of expertise with it. You've got general managers at programs. I mean, you've got just different skill sets running some of these things. And maybe that's something Tennessee needs to address, and they need to get better in that area, and maybe they can prevent some of this. I don't know. I'm like you. We don't have all the answers, because there's just so much secrecy around all of it that there's just not a lot of information, and nobody really wants to talk about it on the record.
It could be as you said, could be with the collective, could be that they need a GM. I mean, we said that last week. I think this is true no matter how you slice any of this stuff. Tennessee needs a GM because you've seen real successes at other places because of that. Actually, Oklahoma is one of them. They have done the GM model, and they have had a gangbusters offseason, getting some really nice transfers. I mean, I don't know that anybody's won in the transfer portal more than they have in terms of a team that needed to flip things around and is kind of in a desperate position. They've done a really good job. So I would start there. But some, and then things came out this week after we had our show that I thought were interesting. Like people started talking about how Nico had skipped out on NIL appearances that he was supposed to do. And that, that was something that had been ongoing and had happened a number of times. But nobody had talked about it. And you kind of go, well, what, you could have tipped us off back then. Nobody knew about that, but
nobody talks about that stuff till after. Yeah.
You made it to a playoff. Nobody's going to talk about. Nobody's going to talk about this kid skipping NIL appearances. I mean, that was just some of the stuff.
Here's what we would have done, right? Like we heard the whispers and all the stuff about him in the portal back in December when Mike Matthews was considering it, and we all were like, "No, don't go in the portal. Figure this out. You have to keep him at Tennessee." If you'd have heard these reports about, which would have been from anonymous sources, right? And I'm not slamming that. That's just the way it has to be in college football because nobody talks about this stuff hardly on the record. So that's the only way you get information. And that clouds reality a bit because you don't know what's real, what's not. But if we would have heard these reports about the NIL stuff, we would have, I don't know about that. Like, that doesn't sound right. Like, look at this kid. He's so well-mannered. He's such a good kid. There's no way that's accurate. So that stuff always kind of comes out after the fact when things have gone south.
Another one I heard Nakos on 104.5, our friends over at 104.5, and he confirmed that he did not leak that, or the person that leaked all of this to him 2 weeks ago was not from Tennessee's side. He also, I think he also said it wasn't from Nico's side either. And, he's not going to sell that person down the river because he's a professional. But
it sounds like another collective or another program maybe trying. I mean, that's a fun conspiracy theory there, that another collective, which we know other collectives obviously got word of this because they're shopping Nico around. Maybe right for the spring game and the portal opens, you throw that report out there, you leak it to Nakos, you create some chaos. And if that was the goal, I mean, mission accomplished, whoever it was. But that would make sense. It doesn't make any sense for Tennessee to leak it. I think Nico's side probably believes that. I mean, that's what we've kind of gathered, and it appears to be, but it's never made sense to me why they would leak that. That would only create more headaches for them. It did create more headaches for them.
Good comments here that can kind of move us on to the second part of this. Dustin Young says, are we going to be a part of the first trade in college football? Only fitting since we are part of the first big NIL deal. And Jason says, I'm not optimistic on Aguilar. What are your thoughts on him? So let's talk about that. Again, I mean, we could litigate the whole thing with Nico till we're blue in the face. At a certain point, you got to move on. So Tennessee has been searching for a QB since then. And it's a very weird spot that I think at first Tennessee fans had a decent amount of optimism about, cautious optimism, where you went, hey, this is a chance where we could maybe upgrade. Like, you're willing to throw down some cash. And I think 100% Tennessee and its donors were more than willing to throw down huge amounts of cash in this scenario. I mean, you just landed Nate Ament in basketball, and the reports are like $3-4+ million for him. I mean, who knows the exact number there, but Tennessee's donors are willing to throw around some serious money. And slowly the reports have come out that, Tennessee talked to the kid at TCU. He gets a pay raise. Tennessee talked to I guess today, one was Luke Altmaier at Illinois. Now, it hasn't come out that he got a raise, at least. Maybe it has since we started the show.
I don't think so.
But it essentially, the reports around that where Tennessee took a swing and it seems like it's fizzled. I don't think that was kind of confirmed in the same way that the TCU one was. The TCU one, that news came out in like the Fort Worth Star-Telegram that they reported on, and they, panicked. So Tennessee is tampering. Oh my God. Okay. Everybody's tampering. If you're not tampering, you're losing at college football. That's the way that it is right now. I would put it this way. Tennessee's not tampering enough because we don't have a quarterback yet. So that is what it is. But it's been a very secretive process outside of just those couple of things, because I think Tennessee has probably looked under every rock and tried to uncover anything that they can. They've probably tried to talk to everybody. But what makes it tough in this scenario is that when guys aren't in the portal like Joey Aguilar now is, and we'll discuss that in a second, but what makes it tough is like you can't make direct contact with that kid. And so what they have to do, I would think, and from what we've known about this process, is that the staff has to say, hey, we're looking at this kid to the collective. The collective or a donor or a representative of some sort has to now approach this kid and say, hey, buddy, we got $3 million for you over here, whatever it is. And what do you think about that? And it's sort of this third party process of how all of this works. You're not totally sure. And it just hasn't materialized. And also it makes it where it's a little bit of an information black hole, because like these reporters, do you know the exact person that you need to reach out to be like, oh, that's the guy that talked to Luke Altmaier? I think Tennessee's purposefully keeping that stuff a secret, as they should. It's still against the NCAA rules. And so, nobody really knows what's going on. You look at like VolQuest, you look at 247, nobody knows what's going on, really. If finally some solid stuff came out, Tennessee's going to talk to Joey Aguilar. That came out today. I think Chris Lowe put it out because he's in the transfer portal, because you're able to have that information. And so it's made this process where nobody knows anything. Tennessee fans are understandably kind of in a panic a bit, while also, I think, remaining kind of optimistic of like, man, maybe we can get a guy that's better than Nico. It's been a weird process. Obviously, completely unprecedented. You're wading into waters that nobody ever has before. You're in such a weird position. And I think the main thing is this. There was more optimism on the front end because it's unprecedented. Nobody really knows how this type of situation is going to work out. And the fact is this. For a kid to leave for a fat check to come and play for you from a prominent program, they were going to be doing what Nico did. It's not exactly the same, but kind of similar.
Mm-hmm.
And that's this late in the game. Only a few months from the start of fall practice. That's just not super probable that you're just going to get a lot of guys that are like, yeah, I'll leave in May and uproot my life and go move to Knoxville in kind of something I didn't know about a week ago. And I'm sure guys are enticed by $4 million or whatever, but that's still a crazy ask. And I think on the front end, if you thought it all the way through and really gave it deep thought, you probably could have figured that. But that really has become reality over the last week, where you just went, yeah, this was a tougher situation than I think we thought it was going to be on the front end.
Yeah, it's a real tough spot for Tennessee, because if you're a quarterback that comes to Tennessee, it's obviously going to be in large part because of the money at this part of the calendar, unless you're Joey Aguilar, right? Like that one's a different situation because they just took a guy to take your starting spot, and now you kind of got to go find another place. I thought maybe he would stay and compete with Nico, because I think he'd have a really good chance to beat him out for that starting job, assuming, Deshaun Foster does, the right thing and names the starter that plays the best in practice and in fall camp. He might just go with Nico because it's Nico. We don't know how that situation would have played out. But he's the one guy that's kind of like looking for a new spot now because of what happened. I mean, he's the big loser in all this, really. I mean, he was in a really good spot and seemed well liked by his teammates and was popular there, and seemed like he had a good thing going with the offensive coordinator there, Tino Sutseri, that they had just hired this past offseason. But, outside of him, Luke Altmaier is the other guy that you mentioned that would make sense because of his previous connection to playing at Ole Miss under Jeff Lebby that 1 year. So he might be able to, blend into this offense a little quicker than most. Otherwise, I honestly, I think you're looking at a situation where unless something crazy happens, unless Altmaier ends up jumping on board or some name that we haven't heard yet ends up, being swayed to come to Tennessee, I think it's a spot where Aguilar seems like the most realistic guy. And I don't think you take him and say, hey, this is our starter in 2025. I don't think that's what Josh Heupel would do at all, because you don't know. Like, you don't know how he's going to fit into your offense, the chemistry. I'd say I like the kid. I was reading about him a little bit today and just his story of kind of being an underlooked guy and having to earn everything he had. He went to a community college for a couple of years and went to Appalachian State and was able to get to a Power 4 program in UCLA. Like, he's had to battle and he's always believed in himself. He seems like a confident guy. That's the kind of mentality you've got to have, I think, to thrive in Tennessee's offense. I think the reason Hendon Hooker was so good in 21 and 22 is Tennessee was able to kind of unlock that in him, where he would play free and easy. He wasn't afraid to let it rip, as Joey Hosley likes to say. And I think Milton and Nico at times were a bit hesitant to do that because they were so afraid to make mistakes. So I think Aguilar fits in based on that. But there's no guarantee he would beat out, Jake Mertlinger for the starting job, who, we heard good things about Mertlinger this spring. I mean, who knows? You don't know, because it's all reports. And we know that you can't take a lot from practice, right? Like, Joe Milton looked the best in 21. Josh Dobbs never looked the best in practice. Like, you never really know till they get out on the field. But I think Mertlinger's experience in this offense really would set him up to win a battle this fall. So I don't think there's any guarantee that, like, you take Aguilar, he's your guy. Like, I don't think that would be the situation at all. I think far more likely, if you take him, you pay him to be a well-paid potential backup, potential starter. I mean, it's not going to be Nico money, obviously. And maybe you give Mertlinger a little raise there because you got money left over from the Nico stuff. You give George McIntyre a little raise. Maybe it's more evened out. And it's like, hey, let the best man win this job. And if we get 3 games in and you're not playing up to the standard, then we're going to give this guy a shot. Like, that might be the best case scenario for Tennessee. There might not be anything else they can do to put themselves in a better situation than that. And we're just, as Tennessee fans, I think you're gonna have to be okay with that and just accept that that's the reality. It's not the best circumstances. It's not what anyone at Tennessee wanted to go through this fall, but that just might be the best spot that you're able to land in.
So folks in the comments were talking about that some of the things that came out around this situation were that QBs that Tennessee spoke with were unimpressed with Tennessee's offensive line and wide receiver situation. I think Ben Hall mentioned it here. And I guess that's believable.
It's fair because it's so much unknown. A lot of talent, plenty of talent there.
Yeah, but it is unknown. I mean, your best guy is a pretty much unknown entity. Mike Matthews, he had some really nice catches and showed some pretty serious physicality last year. But outside of that, Chris Brazzell, hey, he caught that winning touchdown against Alabama. That's fun. But also he had a ton of drops and kind of had a disappointing season. So, yeah, that's fair. Personally, I don't think it goes much deeper. It may be that with some guys, but I'm not sure it goes much deeper than just, man, we're so close to the season. Spring practice has passed. Like, you got just May, June, July, and then we are right on top of this football season. Like, you are that close, and you're just going to ask a guy to leave where he's living. Yes, it's a sweet paycheck that could change somebody's life without a doubt, but leave where they're living, learn a new system. And if you came here, like if you were Luke Altmaier and you chose to come here, Tennessee fans would welcome him with absolute open arms. They would be so happy, so grateful. Oh my gosh, somebody actually did this. Holy cow. Let's go. We got a guy from a big program who's a starter. But ultimately, you get a quarter into the season. If he's playing poorly against Syracuse, it's not going to be, thank you, Luke Altmaier. We're just so grateful you showed up. No, you're going to get the scrutiny of Tennessee fans. And it's going to be serious pressure. And frankly, for Luke Altmaier, it's going to be a lot more pressure than it would be in Illinois. But again, maybe money talks to somebody, and there's somebody we don't know of that's out there. but I doubt it's this. Oh, we don't have wide receivers. Tennessee probably has better wide receivers than Illinois does,
Yeah.
and you would get a fat paycheck. But man, like it's just such a weird situation to ask somebody to step into. It would take such a singular guy where Aguilar does not have those elements. He's looking for a spot. It basically is sort of an NFL style trade, as weird as all of that is. And somebody mentioned he has tape against Clemson last year and he didn't look great. And that's fair.
I mean, he was not a guy that was being courted by SEC programs in December.
Right.
I mean, it's a new face that has put up some yardage totals when he's at Appalachian State. And like I said, I like the kid's mentality, but he wasn't in high demand. And if he would have been a guy that you took in December, if Nico had left, I mean, everybody would be in shambles. Nobody would be celebrating that addition. I think Altmaier's a little different. I think he has a higher ceiling. I think he's a winner. I think he proved that last year, leading Illinois to one of their best seasons in program history, had a lot of game-winning drives, which I think is important, right? I think that's a big deal. I think being able to perform in clutch situations is huge. Not being able to perform in clutch situations cost Tennessee 2 big games in the Heupel era already, in the Ole Miss in 21 and last year against Arkansas. So I think that's an important attribute to have. I think that would be, if you could somehow get Altmaier to Tennessee, I think that's a huge win considering the circumstance. But that's, that's just such a tough ask, to ask that guy to leave, to transfer for a third time, and to leave a situation that you feel comfortable in and that you've got like a good thing going there at Illinois. And you're really not in the spotlight a whole lot there. I mean, there aren't high expectations. You come to Tennessee, everybody knows kind of the pressure and the expectations that come along with that. And you want somebody that wants to embrace that. But I don't know. I mean, maybe he changes his mind and maybe 2 days from now he's a Vol, but I could completely understand if he's like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. I'd just rather stick in the situation I'm at, because these guys, like, ultimately, they want to get to the NFL, most of these guys that are going to command big dollars, right? And they're not going to put themselves in a situation to jeopardize that. I don't think. Aguilar's a little different. I mean, he has 1 year of eligibility left because of the Pavia ruling with the junior college athletes. So he's just trying to cash in one last time here, in his final year of eligibility. And that's the reason he's probably the most realistic option. And that's just depth to me. I mean, maybe he wins the starting job, but I don't think that's a guy you come in and just say, here's the offense, go get them against Syracuse. I would lean towards Mertlinger being the starter, even if they get Aguilar.
I don't think that it's a bad situation. I mean, I see people in the comments kind of doom and glooming. And again, I already said that earlier in the show. If you would have looked at Twitter right now, the fact that it's looking like Tennessee's going to have to fall to a situation like Aguilar, everybody's like 6-6 is the ceiling. Oh my gosh, this is the end of the world. I don't think that you could say anything like that. Like,
we don't know.
Hendon Hooker was such a complete and utter unknown. Never in 1,000 years would I have looked at what that dude had on paper before he showed up in Tennessee and gone, yep, he's going to have a near Heisman season under Josh Heupel.
We kind of looked at him as that who was that quarterback that Pruitt added his first year that played briefly. Was he from out west somewhere, Stanford or something maybe? Do you remember who I'm talking about?
That Heupel added?
No, Pruitt, back in like 2018.
Oh, dude, Keller Christ.
Yes. I think that's how we looked at Hendon
next
Hooker.
To his parents at the spring game.
I think that's how we looked at Hendon Hooker when Pruitt, he
yes.
committed under Pruitt and all the Heupel stuff. It's like, oh yeah, he's on the roster. We forgot about that. We never really thought he was going to be the guy. So that does happen from time to time, but that's really hard to predict. I mean, that's just like the perfect storm of Hooker's personality lining up and his skill set lining up with what Josh Heupel does. And to Hooker's credit, he did get this offense from day one, pretty much. I mean, Milton might have been better in practice, but once Hooker got his shot when Milton went down against Pittsburgh, I mean, he took off in that 21 season. The defense was giving up points, but Tennessee they were more explosive in 21 than they were in 23 and 24. So you can find yourself in a situation like that, but I think Altmaier is your best chance to find that type of situation.
Yeah, I mean, to me at this point, Here's the best thing that you could do. And this is another thing that folks are talking about in the comments. And this is the best thing you could do given the information we know right now. There may be a quarterback out there that they're talking about that none of us know about, and it's going to get announced tomorrow, and suddenly that guy's your QB next year. But let's say it ends up being Aguilar. You go with Aguilar, you do the trade. You trade Nico for Appalachian State's old
Aguilar
quarterback.
and cash considerations, basically.
Yes, a couple of third-round picks, and he comes to Knoxville. And you go and, I mean, we were already saying Tennessee has money to throw around in this situation. I think there were a set of donors that were pissed off after the way that Tennessee kind of got pantsed sort of in this situation. And even if this was sort of, Nico and his team's screw up, it's still like, just what a ridiculous situation for Tennessee to be caught in. And go and give your money to that wide receiver from BYU who's coming to visit, and go and give your money to a skill position player like that, like Oklahoma. I mean, Oklahoma went behind the scenes, worked it with that running back from Cal who's a dog, and now they got their guy quarterback and they got a running back. And go and give money to some wide receivers. That's what I would do. And then you're going to have as good of a competition as you can in the QB room. You'll have more options at wide receiver, and you're putting yourself in I think, the best position that you could ask for out of this crap sandwich that you've been handed. I mean, it just is like, what a terrible situation for everybody involved, not just Tennessee getting screwed over here, but Nico's dad just screwing Nico's career over like he has. I mean, it's poor for everybody, and you got to make the best of it. And if you're not going to be able to go and steal a Luke Altmaier or whoever, I think it's smart to go, hey, this Aguilar is going to come in, bring nice competition to our room, and then we'll go and put good guys around them, and let's just see what can happen. Because the defense is still set to not have a big drop off. And
if I was going
who your running backs are.
If I was going to spend money, I would spend money on a corner. I would find the best available corner that wants a big payday and go.
Yeah, something like that.
Because that's my biggest concern, honestly, even more than the quarterback deal. Like, I think they'd hype, like, last year Nico wasn't elite, right? Like, Tennessee didn't go to the playoff because of Nico. He didn't play bad. He didn't lose you games. Made a great throw in the Alabama game, but like, obviously there was a lot of points left on the table. I think this team can win without a Heisman caliber quarterback back there. It'd be nice to have, but I don't think you have to absolutely have that. And maybe he can get Mertlinger to play to the same level that Nico played at last year, and you'll be able to win some games because of your defense. But I think not having Jermod McCoy, who knows when he'll be back. Hopefully he's back sooner rather than later with the torn ACL. But that's my biggest worry in cornerback depth in general. If you could go get a high-priced corner that could slot right into this defense, I would be thrilled with that, honestly, if that comes out of all this.
Yeah, just get your Band-Aid QB now, and then bolster other places. If you have this cash to throw around, you can go and get a CB that's entering. Elias says it here, that cornerback from Hawaii just entered. You have some options there. There is also considerations like let's see, I had it saved on my Twitter here, and this is another person you probably would want to consider throwing money to. From Syracuse, you have Murad Watson, who Tennessee recruited before he actually chose a school out of high school, and now he's entering the portal. Now you're going up against Georgia, you're going up against Ohio State, you're going up against Texas for this kid, but you are in a situation that I would call sort of a desperate times, desperate measures. Maybe let's give this guy $4 million or whatever. I don't know what the going rate is for a defensive lineman at the moment, but you have history with this kid to some extent. And, there are players like that out there where you can go, hey, this is the hand we're dealt at the quarterback position. Now let's go make everything else better in any way that we can. And I would say I need to see this out of Heupel right now. some serious urgency in the portal, because I think so far in his time at Tennessee, he has not been as aggressive in the portal as he needs to be. I don't think he's been as aggressive recruiting, period, as he needs to be. And I want to see some urgency here somewhere. You may have just sort of walked into your QB situation here because of how UCLA treated their guy. But everywhere else, let's see it. I mean, you got on the same campus right now, you got Rick Barnes at age 70 going out and giving the hard sell to these kids when he could have hung this up 3 years ago and gone, nope, not doing it, not dealing with this transfer portal stuff. I'm out. See you later. Bye. And he's working astronomical NIL deals reportedly for recruits and transfers. I mean, I think it's 7 figures plus for the Jacoby Gillespie guy. They may do that again for Rodney Rice if they can get him, or another shooting guard. There are other options beside Rodney Rice out there on the same campus as you. Let's see it, Josh. Let's see it. I have given Josh Heupel tons of rope, and he deserves it. And there are just some points that we've talked about on this show. Elite recruiting is so just required. It's required. That's the right word. It is required in this league to have elite recruiting, and he has not done that. He's had sprinkled in elite guys, but it has not been this sort of cutthroat getting these guys in. I mean, again, Rick Barnes just went and beat Duke for a recruit. Have we seen anything like that out of Josh Heupel? Maybe fending off Ohio State for David Sanders. Maybe.
No,
that's
pretty
close. That is.
But you got to get the Carnell Tates. You got to get more of those guys for sure. I mean,
yeah,
and that's why Ohio State won, because they had Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith and Ibuka and some of those guys, and they didn't have an elite quarterback. So, yeah, I'm with you on that. He does have to get more talent. It's going to take top 5 classes. It's going to take making huge splashes in the portal from time to time for the top guy and beating out the marquee programs for that. But that can be tough too, and tougher in football, I think, just because of the nature of the sport. That's no excuse for Heupel there, but it's a weird dynamic there, right? Like the haves usually continue to get the players, and it's tough to climb that mountain and knock them off. And Ohio State's just made it even tougher. I think Georgia's getting to a point where maybe they're vulnerable. He can beat out some guys for them, but I agree. You got to get more of those guys. And I think really, not to get into a conversation about this, but the thing I want to see from Heupel is he's got to hold his assistant coaches, I think, accountable moving forward. I know he loves his culture and his continuity, but we heard through this, and we don't know how true all of it is, because like we've kind of gave this caveat with everything. You don't know what's accurate and what's not, because it's so off the record. But throughout this whole process, you kind of heard some discontent with Glenn Ellerbe and the job he's done with the offensive line, and look, the results show that. And I think that's the other thing Heupel's got to do. And I think if he doesn't, I'm not saying go fire Glenn Ellerbe. Maybe the offensive line plays great this year. I hope it does, and it doesn't come to that. But if it doesn't, it's going to be really hard to get those offensive line recruits moving forward. And that's a killer for the program. You can't afford to let that happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of things. I want to see more development. I think you could nitpick Heupel on how much development have we truly seen with like guys he got out of high school. Obviously, that's glaring on the offensive line, as you're saying there with Ellerbe. You've seen it with the best assistant coach you have on the defensive line. Those guys have developed, but everywhere else, I mean, have we seen anything significant in development there? Like, it's there's a lot to say as far as that stuff goes, and that we're not doing that on tonight's show.
And real quick here, like Kevin says, don't understand the criticism here. It's not so much criticism of Heupel. It's just, this is what you have to do if you're going to take this program to the next level and win a national championship. These are the hurdles you have to clear. It's not like, fire this guy, we're unhappy with this guy. I mean, everybody goes through this. Dabo took him a while to figure. Everybody does it at their own rate, right? Like, this isn't, every situation's different. these are just the things that Heupel has to continue to do across the board to get this or continue to do better across the board to get this program to the next level. That's just the reality of it.
I mean, I think I might have said this the last couple of weeks. I feel like I did. Look at Tony Vitello winning that national title last year. What was that formula? They didn't have the most elite pitching staff in America, but they had some of the best players in America and multiples of them. And not just that, but over the course of time, they got better in their careers in a big way. And ultimately that culminates into Christian Moore, and they're super clutch, incredible hitters, and they make all the plays that you needed to make, and you win a national championship. Like that team wasn't perfect. Like I said, I mean, the pitching wasn't amazing. So you don't have to be perfect across the board and be an absolute machine like Georgia's been a couple of years. Not like that. But to truly compete and be there in that moment and have a chance to win a national championship in college football, you have to have not just one dude who's elite. I mean, college football is the most sort of, what's the right word? Like kind of complicated team sport. There's so many moving pieces that you just got to go. We got to have an elite guy on the defensive line. We got to have an elite guy at quarterback. We got to have an elite guy at wide receiver. Ohio State had that. They had a quarterback who could get the ball to all of these elite wide receivers that they had. They had a great defensive line. They had great defensive backs. It was all over the field. That's how you win a national championship. And I'm saying, like, hey, 10 wins is amazing, and Heupel's taking it there. Top 10 recruiting class. That'll take you to a top 10 team most of the time. But is it going to take you into that absolute elite echelon? What Heupel has done so far? No, it's not. It's not.
Like, we're not complaining. Like, you beat Alabama and Florida, twice each in the last 4 years. That's worlds better than where we were 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever, 5 years ago. So again, it's just, you want to see this thing continue to build towards a championship like that. I'm not a championship or bust guy. Like, I'm a big baseball guy, so I'm an enjoy the ride kind of guy. It's about the journey, not always the destination. But of course you want that, right? Like, there's nothing better than that. Like, that's what you want to build to. So every season is not a failure if it doesn't end with a championship. But of course you do want to get to that and celebrate that and see that happen.
Yeah, I want to have a real shot at this thing. I mean, especially now with the 12-team playoff, the opportunity has never been more there for you. And I really think this is a little bit of a crossroads moment for Heupel, because this can sort of be like your villain origin story, where you go like, that was the moment where it all turned for Heupel, where it was he switched and there was a new life that he took on after this. Or it can crush you. A moment like this can crush you, because you can go and maybe the quarterback situation doesn't work out. You have a bad season, and then it tanks you from there. This is a pivotal moment in terms of how Heupel handles it. It's going to be pretty compelling to see exactly how this goes. So there's so much to talk about with all this. I don't know if you have any other high points before we move on to Nate Mint and basketball, but anything else?
I mean, we got plenty of time over the next few weeks as things play out, and we kind of figure out what this roster is going to look like for the fall, because there's going to be some additions. There might be a player or two that leaves here before the portal closes in a few days, 4 days, whatever it is. We don't know exactly what we've got to work with yet this fall. So we'll be able to unpack that. And we got a whole summer of trying to figure out what pieces fit where and what we really think about this team and, what we think they can accomplish this season. There's a lot of opportunity out there to change the narrative about Tennessee football as far as what they do on the road. You're playing Florida and Alabama on the road this season. So those are tough games, but you got to look to those as opportunities. I mean, if you want to be a championship team, you got to be able to go in and win games like that on the road. And, just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. And maybe, like you said, maybe this flips a switch. Maybe it re-energizes. Not that Heupel need to be re-energized. I think the program's been in a good place and the culture's good and the vibes have been good, but maybe it just takes his intensity to another level and really helps the whole team lock in. I mean, sometimes these things can bring out the best in players, and Tennessee still has a lot of talented players. And, I think that's the only way you can look at it. If you're doom and gloom, it's not And that's not really going to help anything. Save that
what's the
until there's
point?
save that till there's a reason to, till they give us a reason to be doom and gloom.
Like Wayne's comedy says, it's fight or flight, and I don't see Heupel having flight in his DNA because of how competitive he is.
I agree.
I tend to agree. We had Grant Frerking on here, a guy who played under Heupel, and he said Heupel's the most competitive guy he's ever seen in his life. And I believe that, and I hope that this, as I said, I hope it is sort of like a villain origin story, where you went like that. That was the moment where it got serious here. And hey, we'll find out soon enough.
I mean, Ryan Day kind of had that, when they lost to Michigan.
That's true.
It's a different situation, but the vibes, everything. I mean, that guy was getting fired if he lost to Tennessee. I don't know if it really would have happened, but that was the feeling, right? So,
I mean, sometimes
that's what it takes.
I think we talked about it. There was a moment during I think it was the off season, or maybe it was the middle of the season last season, where somebody asked Ryan Day, like, how do you reflect on those losses to Michigan? They've just been so big. And he's like, they're the darkest moments of my life.
Oh yeah.
Did he say something? He was like, it was like the day my dad died and the day I lost to Michigan. Like, it was something really extreme, where he compared losing to Michigan to something. We were like, whoa, buddy. Okay. Like, is it really that bad? Like, this is sports. Let's keep it in perspective. And look where that got you.
Yeah.
National title hanging up there in the rafters. So I think that's enough for this week. We're going to follow it all, obviously talk about it here, but let's talk about some seriously positive news. No matter how you look at it, Tennessee basketball went and got the highest rated recruit ever to commit in the history of the program. I think that's point blank all you really need to know. Nate Ament out of Warrenton, Virginia, commits to Tennessee basketball, and this is so insane. Wait, is this real, Zach? Hold on. We may have to go back. This may be a change. Two people in the comments are saying Joey Aguilar just committed to Tennessee.
Reported it, and it's really quite poetic, right? Because Nico committed during a live stream, so now his replacement commits during a live stream. It's the only way it could have happened.
Lordy, it really is all coming full circle. Yeah, Zach said Nico committed while we were live on a stream. Now Joey Aguilar, who takes his place, commits. That's funny. How quickly that moved.
Well, you had to think. Once he went in the portal, right, Tennessee was always the logical destination. I don't think he was going to go. I know Tulane and like Wake Forest were mentioned. I think that was probably just agent talk to make sure you got a good offer from Tennessee, right? Like, there's got to be a little bit of leverage there, because if Aguilar enters the portal and no one else is interested, you have no leverage to get a deal for your client there. And maybe that's a sign he has a competent agent. I don't know, but there was no other logical outcome, I think, once he entered the portal, then hey, he's likely going to end up at Tennessee. And we wouldn't know that for sure, because you never know what can transpire with these kind of things. But you got to think, you don't enter the portal this time of year unless you have a place to go. Like, you're not entering the portal and taking a tour right now, right? Like, we're not seeing that if you're a quarterback, at least. Maybe if you're a wide receiver or other position, but if you're a quarterback, you know where you're going if you enter the portal this time of year.
Well, and it's interesting because he came from a school that's close by. I mean, Boone, North Carolina is 2 hours away from here, just right over the mountain. And so he sort of knows the region-ish. And I could absolutely see it that Tennessee maybe approached him and said, hey, we both got screwed by this situation. Why don't you come here and show UCLA what you're made of? We'll go out, we'll make a statement together. And I hope that's what they said. That's cool. That, I mean, obviously it sort of makes the last 50 minutes of the show a little bit of a moot point, but
well, I mean, I think it goes back to that conversation we had before, that this is probably going to be a quarterback battle, an open quarterback competition in the fall, 3 ways. I think McIntyre will be in that as well. I don't think McIntyre's going to win this battle, but I think I think he'll have every opportunity to do it, and I think the competition will hope that brings out the best in these guys. And maybe it's Mertlinger, maybe it's Aguilar. It just really depends on how Aguilar picks up this offense, how well he's able to build connections with Tennessee's wide receivers, how quickly he can build that chemistry. Those are all questions we can't answer at this point because we just don't know how that's going to look, and we won't know till he's on a field and practicing and really in this offense and seeing how much he can handle. If there's any adjustments that they have to make to the offense without Nico there, if it's a different kind of approach that they go with, how the running backs fit into that. I mean, there's just so much that goes into this, right? Like there's a lot of new pieces. You don't know how it's all going to mesh together at this point. Heupel doesn't know. So, I mean, there's no way that we can know. And I don't think you take this guy sight unseen, right? Like you watched this film. I'm sure Tennessee's watched probably every snap he's taken over the last few days since the Nico stuff has happened. But even then, you might have a good idea of what you can do with him. But until he's actually in your system, you have no idea. So I think for now, it's like you got 3 quarterbacks, and let's see which one ends up being the starter against Syracuse.
Yep. Here's Chris Lowe's full tweet. He said, the QB trade is complete. Joey Aguilar plans to sign with Tennessee after transferring to UCLA from App State. In the winter portal, sources tell ESPN. He trades places with Nico Iamaleava, who transferred from Tennessee to UCLA in the current portal. Back to business as usual. Great tweet from Chris.
And I think Dustin here brings up a good point here on Mertlinger, and it's something that I think I mentioned last week. I can't remember. It's just something we've had the conversation about before. But Mertlinger came to Tennessee, knowing that Nico was there, knowing that McIntyre was committed, and you're going to be sandwiched in between these 2 highly touted guys. And he still chose to go to Tennessee. I mean, this guy grew up rooting for Georgia, right? Like he's from Georgia. He said before he was a Georgia fan growing up, and that's not. It's just these guys, that goes out the window, like once you're with the program, right? But he still chose to come to Tennessee, to this place, to play in this offense. I think that shows his competitiveness, which I'm huge on. That's key for a quarterback to have, and his confidence and his ability to win a job. And he's put himself in a position now with a good spring, even with Aguilar coming in, that he could still very well win this job, right? Like that's a very real possibility, and he might even be the favorite just based on his year of experience in it and the fact that he had this spring under his belt as well. So with these current group of wide receivers, so it's it's not the ideal situation that you saw for Tennessee a few months ago, but I don't think it's as dire as you would think it might be if you read social media. I think there's plenty of reason for optimism.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting situation just to see how this goes, because it's such a perfect opportunity to go, hey, let's go out here and make a point. It really, there's a lot of motivation that you could wrap up in this if you're Josh Heupel. And as I already said, I hope they went to Aguilar and they went, let's go stick it to these guys. I want to make a point because of how we got embarrassed in this situation with Nico's clown team. And you want to make a point because they brought in a guy when you had a nice spring and, that job was yours and they just snatched it right away from you. So much motivation on both fronts there. I think it'll be cool. As you're saying, Merklinger has stuck through clear spots where he was getting recruited over. And now he really gets his opportunity. And competition, it was in this spot, competition in the QB room was going to be so key. If you couldn't get a guy, as we said, if you couldn't get a guy like a Luke Altmaier or whatever, competition was going to be so key here. And you're doing that. You're doing exactly that in this spot. And I think that's really admirable. You gotta, when life gives you lemons, this is about as good as this lemonade might get in this situation. Even if we were all dreaming of some magical $4 million QB that was going to walk in, I think after the reality set in, that was just going to be so much harder than we all figured at the beginning of the process. So this is cool. This is pretty funny. Pretty funny how all of this turned out. Like the entire situation and how you've now set yourself up to where the conversation is going to be had. this coming season, if Aguilar becomes the guy, if he wins the QB spot, that conversation is going to be probably decently loud. Where, oh, how does he play compared to Nico? Does Nico look good every week? How does Aguilar look?
Yeah.
How does it's going to be a lot of back and forth like that if Aguilar ends up being the QB here, man. It's going to be a time. This is classic Tennessee nuttiness, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think one maybe underlooked aspect of this is from an outside noise perspective. This is probably the best situation Tennessee could be in going into the 2025 season. Expectations aren't going to be high. Tennessee's not going to be any playoff predictions. Nobody's going to be predicting them as a dark horse to win the national championship. But they're not going to be, crapping all over Tennessee for lack of a better term there. Like there's some sympathy for what Tennessee's went through. This is the first time I've ever seen the national media pretty much like unanimously on Tennessee's side of this thing outside of maybe a few outliers. So you've got low expectations combined with a highly motivated coach, team, and quarterback room. I think all those quarterbacks can be highly motivated, like we've talked about. And, they're going to be going out there looking to prove people wrong without anybody looking over their shoulder saying, I don't know if this is a playoff team or this or that. And it's kind of like the 22 situation all over again. Like we never saw that season coming. And I'm not predicting that. I have no idea what's going to happen in 25. None of us do. Like there's really not much to go off of to even make a reasonable prediction at this point. But I think the environment, the scenario, the noise that this team is going to deal with is a positive. And I think it's the best spot you can be in right now.
Yeah. You were taking a tough situation and making of it what you can, and you got to take it at what it is. I think that's really the key at this spot. I mean, would it be really cool if Tennessee could go out, flex some muscle, and get some guy to make the crazy decision to leave his team 2 months before fall camp starts and do that? Yeah, that would have been absolutely incredible. But also now you have a guy with one of the biggest chips on his shoulder that you could imagine, and you have good guys who I think these coaches believe in. If you really break it down and you want to get serious about it, I mean, Merklinger probably has the highest ceiling there, and I think if you talk to anybody around that program, that's probably going to be what they'll say. But he's so skinny, so young. There's a lot of work to do there, and so now you got two QBs who can have a really nice competition in the fall, and find out who your guy is, and we'll let's see what happens. That is really. I wish I had some strong take here, but Aguilar, hey, he seems like he's kind of freewheeling with the football. That's one thing, but also maybe he's the guy that you need to bomb it downfield with your offense. Maybe you can now. I guess we can circle back around and say this. Now the plan really comes into place that we were just talking about. Go out and get that wide receiver from BYU. Go out, get the defensive lineman from Syracuse. Go out, get you the cornerback. Go out, maybe get another wide receiver. Frankly, let's be honest. Get another wide receiver. Get an offensive lineman. We didn't even cover Larry Johnson goes into the portal, or RIP. I mean, he's not dead, but he's not going to be at Tennessee anymore. RIP to the treasury of the secretary, as I like to call him, Larry Johnson. Man, I go out and get an offensive lineman now. Do build around this and make it a point, and actually have this be kind of Heupel's villain origin story, where you really had a crazy situation that you turned into something good. It's an opportunity, and the way that actually came together is so crazy. I don't even know what to say about that. I think somebody in the comments said it seems like the entire recruitment process for Aguilar was a single phone call. I just said it here. The formalized part of this consisted of a single phone call. It does seem that way. Man, what a time to be alive. Here we are, Zach. Man, that kind of took the show off the rails, but
yeah, well, we've been a while since we've had that situation, but hey,
it has been.
Like I said earlier, it's the best outcome I think that you could have probably hoped for in this situation, and hey, let the best man win the competition and see what they can do this fall. And there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent in that roster. There's a lot of talent on that offense. If they click on all cylinders, they can accomplish a lot of great things because you have elite guys that you've signed, 5-star guys. Lance Hurd, you hope he takes a big step forward at left tackle. He has the pedigree to do that. David Sanders is a highly touted guy. Sam Pendleton, guy you got from Notre Dame, was a highly touted guy. You've got talent. We saw a lot of good things from these running backs last year, and I think this three-headed monster approach is the best way that Heupel's offense operates. Because you hate to lose Dylan Sampson, but he wasn't available to play against Ohio State because of the beating he took all season long. So you like that scenario, and you got more upside at wide receiver. You've got talented tight ends. If the defense can just be anywhere in the neighborhood of what they did last season, you can be a playoff team. Whether that happens or not, we'll see. It depends, on quarterback play and how that defense holds up and how the offensive line gels and if these wide receivers can reach their potential. But as down as everyone will be on Tennessee just because of the Nico stuff, I think there's still a lot of potential. And these are the types of teams that can be dangerous, the kinds of teams that get overlooked, that don't have high expectations, but they have talent, and they, Heupel hasn't broke through really yet, but he's won some big games at Tennessee, and he's kind of progressed. He's beat Alabama, he's beat Florida, he's got those monkeys off the back. He's made the playoff for the first time in program history. He's gaining experience as a head coach that he really didn't have before. He had experience as a player. This is all new to him as a head coach too, being on this stage in the SEC, and I think he's acquitted himself quite well to it, and we'll see if he can take that next step now. And it's going to have to be his finest coaching job just because of the situation and how much he's going to have to cram in this fall to get one of these guys ready to start. But I still think there's a lot of reason to be excited about this team in 25.
I think there is. At the very least, this is just going to be a fascinating study and an insane NIL situation. It's the kind of season where if you actually turned it into something special, like you make a 30 for 30 out of this. And this is the same? You're going to have Netflix documentary around this season, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't Tennessee sign themselves up for that, if I'm remembering correctly? So,
I believe so. Yeah.
I'd say there's going to be a lot of eyes on that Syracuse game, and a lot of eyes probably on the entire season if it turns out that Aguilar's guy and he ends up being pretty good. Yeah. A very interesting situation on our hands. Boy, howdy. Never. I already said at the top of the show, never a normal day around here, Zach. We can't do it. We don't know how. Don't know. It always has to be some sensational something.
Tennessee wanted to be at the forefront of NIL, and they're at the forefront of every potential situation that could arise, from lawsuits to NCAA and injunctions and this crazy situation. They're writing the handbook on it for everyone else to figure out.
Oh yeah, we are at the forefront. All right, boy. Well, let's finish with these couple of things, I guess, quickly. Now, as I was saying before Joey Aguilar interrupted me there, Tennessee got the highest rated recruit in its entire history in basketball yesterday on Easter Sunday in Nate Mint. Unbelievable pickup for Rick Barnes. Can't say enough about how crazy this is. I actually think that you lost out on, because of this, I think you lost out on the services of Elijah Freeman from LMU because Mint probably would have been the starter over Elijah Freeman. If we're talking realistically, they both would be. Freeman's sort of a true 3. Mint is sort of a 3-4, stretch 4 sort of thing. I mean, he's 6'9" and can knock down threes at least so far at a plus 40% clip. And so just truly a phenomenal pickup by Rick Barnes, even if you did, because of this, kind of lose out on Elijah Freeman, and he goes to Auburn. Of course, it's freaking Bruce that takes this guy out of East Tennessee. But yeah, exciting times there. And the fact on the ground is now this for this basketball team. You got the transfer from Maryland. You got the kid from Vanderbilt. Now you have Nate Mint. And if you can fill that shooting guard spot effectively, preseason top 5 team, I think. You're probably talking right there. And specifically, if it could be Rodney Rice, the kid from Maryland who played with the Jacoby's
Gillespie.
why am I blanking on Gillespie? I was thinking Jacoby Thomas, who plays football for Tennessee. Jacoby Gillespie. If you could get Rodney Rice in town to play for you, it's a preseason top 5 team. And that is just so impressive out of Barnes. I mean, we were speculating before Sweet 16, Elite 8 games, like, is this if Tennessee makes Final Four, is this it for Barnes? Does he retire? Kind of, how exactly? Not only did he not retire, he gets the highest rated recruit in the history of the program. Seems as motivated as he's ever been. It's wild. What a pickup, man.
Yeah, he might be the one guy that loves the new era of college sports because he's having one of the best stretches of his career. But yeah, with a Mint, I mean, maybe you hope he's a kind of guy that can carry a team, like a Cooper Flagg did last season for Duke. I mean, you take him off that team, Duke's not anywhere close to where they ended up at. And maybe that's what Tennessee needs, that type of talent to finally get over the hump and get to a Final Four. Super early for that talk. We got to see how this team gels and what other pieces they add and how it all fits together. But on paper, I mean, Rick Barnes is doing and his staff everything that you could ask for this offseason. I mean, you're not going to win every battle, and there's give and take. I mean, like you said, you get one guy, it's going to lead to you losing another guy potentially, but I don't think you could for this to turn out any better way this offseason so far for Tennessee basketball. And yeah, man, Barnes, he's not slowing down, and who knows how many years he has left. Just enjoy it. Really, I mean, we'll worry about that bridge when we get there. I'm sure we'll talk about it throughout the rest of his time at Tennessee just because of his age, and it's just kind of that topic that comes up. But this is just an era that you got to enjoy, and you worry about what comes next when it comes. For now, this is a golden age of Tennessee basketball.
I do really wonder if NIL recharged Barnes and he's looking and going because of this, because Tennessee is so resource rich. And because of this setup where I can just sort of go and take my pick of whoever, go find my Dalton Connect, that this is the best chance since, the Kevin Durant years that I might make it to a Final Four, win a national championship. And if I wonder if that's kind of just revived him even more. His entire time at Tennessee has been a complete career revival. But these last 3 years where it's just been this SEC championship, Elite Eight. It's been what's the right word? A rebirth, I guess. It's a weird word to use for this, but it kind of has been of just, we had a moment. It was at 2021. You have a rough year. You lose to Oregon State and you kind of go, all right, what's happening here? And since then, it's been just a fire that has been lit with Rick Barnes, that where something happened, and it's exciting. It's really, really exciting, and I'm hyped to see what happens there. James, I see your comment there. We talked about it. Obviously, it happened live while we were on here, but we already talked about Joey Aguilar. He's going to be the best quarterback that Tennessee's ever had. That was our take. He's going to win the Heisman next year. No. And let's finish with this. Some not so good news. Tennessee baseball loses to Kentucky over the weekend in a very odd series. You kind of blast them in game one, and then in game two, their pitcher was excellent. The guy has been in college for 14 years. He's like a super senior, and he just roasted you. Nearly threw a complete game against you. I think Tennessee had like 3 hits in that game. It was bad. And then that next game happens, and I would ask you this, Zach. Should we truly be worried? Because you're past the halfway point of the conference season and not looking great, but you had some interesting factors like a foul ball went and hit one of Tennessee's players in the broke his jaw, I believe. hit a Tennessee player in the dugout. Kind of a horrific scene early on in that Kentucky game on Sunday. Really took the air out of the place. And I wondered after that if that affected that game and it just compounded what had happened the day before. And if we should worry, I don't want to necessarily like just provide a easy excuse there, like, oh, it was definitely that, but man, it was bad. I believe he had to have reconstructive-ish surgery today. Just pretty tough thing that happened right in front of these guys early on in that game. So I don't know. How do you feel after that one?
Yeah, I think that was a big part of it. I think there's a combination of a few things there. I think that kind of, turned the vibes in the wrong way. Vitello kind of talked about the vibes not being where they needed to be. It's also it's kind of the dog days of the college season at this point. You're kind of in the middle of the season. It's a long season for some of these guys. As many games as they're playing at a competitive games. You got some youth on the roster. You don't have some of the leadership that you had last season to get you through some of those peaks and valleys. And I think it's maybe something that they had to go through, hopefully, to kind of get themselves on the right track here. Because I think Vitello sent a message, after the game that was like, "Hey, like, you're not just going to walk out there and beat these teams, right? Like, you don't put it on cruise control in the SEC and win series. You just don't. Like, you might be good, but you have to go out there and compete at a really high level, like it's the only game that matters every single night to win these types of games. Like, it just doesn't happen in the SEC or really in college baseball in general. Any team, we've seen it. You see it in these midweek games all the time. You can get beat. Those guys are on the scholarship too. They're trying to win too. And if it's their night, it's their night. And if you're not locked in completely, you can get knocked off. So maybe that's a lesson they kind of had to learn there. And you saw who they are Friday night. I think that's this team at their best. So I don't think it's an ability thing at all. I think it's just a mindset thing. Hopefully that resets them as they kind of get into the stretch run of this season before the tournament starts and before the games really matter. But you want to put yourself in a good position, right? Like, you got to make sure that you host like a regional. Like, you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you got to go on the road and win. So these games are important, and you don't want to keep dropping series. We'll see. It's a big test this weekend. You go to Baton Rouge, you can flip the narrative really quick if you take 2 out of 3 down there. Can't get swept. You lose 1 out of 3, and it depends how you lose, I guess. We'll have that conversation if we have to, but you want to be competitive, and you want to show that you belong in that series against LSU.
Yeah, you have a bit of an inflection point here where this can either send you spiraling, or you can be motivated from here on out. Kind of like this Joey Aguilar situation with Tennessee football. You can choose how you handle it. Now, obviously, I implicitly trust Tony Vitello and the choices that he's gonna make, and so I think that they'll probably come out with their hair on fire against LSU. I really hope that happens, because in 2023 you kind of had that moment at Vandy. The beginning of that conference season had just been really rough, and then what was it, at Vandy or was it in Knoxville, Vandy? It doesn't totally matter, but they won a really nice series against Vandy and just blasted the baseball and kind of had new life. And then from there on out, you end up having a nice close to the season. You end up making College World Series. We all watched it. And so it will hopefully be a moment like that. I don't foresee, with Vitello at the helm, this dooming them. I know that there's no doubt in my mind that he absolutely got after them after that game. And maybe it was the Tanner Wiggins situation that was a contributing factor, and you do have to take that into account, because supposedly it was a pretty gory, disturbing sort of thing that happened. And so I would say I almost hope it was the distraction of that. I mean, I wish that didn't happen at all, obviously. But I kind of hope it was the distraction of that more than it was, these guys, their head's just not in the game right now. Because, I mean, Kentucky, man, losing, they're such a goofy team. So they small ball, they steal a lot of bases, they dance in the dugout. They're just, I can't stand Kentucky in anything. But that was a tough one to watch. Do not get swept by LSU, and frankly, win this series against LSU, because it's imperative that this is the point where you kind of turn it around and have a new fire lit under you. So we'll see what happens as far as that goes. I don't know if you had a whole lot else, Zach. This has been a heck of a show. And I haven't eaten yet. I gotta go.
Same. That's about it with baseball. But Nico's brothers now hit the transfer portal. That is an accurate. It's not. Me. Yeah. No. So
do you think he just goes to UCLA?
I don't know.
Is he gonna go to UCLA?
God, maybe. Who knows? Nothing would surprise me at this point. I know he won't go to Tennessee. I bet Josh Heupel will decline that call real quick and just send that one to voicemail.
So, I mean, he wasn't going to be the starter at Arkansas.
He's a true freshman. No.
Again.
Yeah, he's a true freshman. That was never the plan. Who knows? I mean, Willin and Dylan, man, big Nick's out there getting it done, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, if you are UCLA.
Or Cordell Landers, whoever it is.
Yeah, whoever is doing the. But I mean, if you are UCLA, that's such a weak move if you're going to take him back. They spit. I mean, I guess you're already giving up. You're giving up the ghost taking his brother, aren't you? I mean,
but I think that situation too was UCLA could have handled that a little better. They fired their offensive coordinator the day after the early signing period started. I don't think there was good communication there on who the OC was going to be. It was Eric Bieniemy. Was at UCLA, and he got fired December 5th. And Madden flipped to Arkansas on December 4th. I think at the time, the Nico's family, Madden's family, still had positive things to say about Deshaun Foster. It was more of an offensive coordinator deal, the way I understand it. And I'm sure money was a part of it too. So I don't know. There was reasons there that they flipped. It wasn't just like a total we're going to go here for the bigger check. I mean, maybe ultimately that's what it was, but there was like an offensive coordinator deal where they didn't know who the guy was going to be at UCLA. And I don't know if that should have been a huge deal anyway, because you're probably not going to start as a true freshman anyway. If you want to transfer after year one, you can. I mean, that's what was going to happen anyway, apparently. So I don't know. We'll see. I wouldn't put it past UCLA, though. They haven't been making great decisions here.
That's completely insane. I mean, the kid barely stepped on campus. You blow off UCLA on signing day to go to Arkansas. You get through spring at Arkansas and then transfer. And if he goes back to UCLA, I mean,
we've seen it all at this point with the portal, so nothing would shock me.
This is just otherworldly.
And he can't go to an SEC school. Because he's Arkansas, so that takes the whole conference off the table.
I mean, that has to be UCLA, right? It has to be.
You would think. Get everybody in the same. I know Nico posted a story. He was in Fayetteville yesterday when he made that announcement for UCLA. He was there with Madden. They were loading the truck up. I don't know, but maybe they want everybody in the same place, which I understand if that's the case. But yeah, we'll just see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you think realistically, if your one son is coming back to Los Angeles, 20, 30 minutes from where they live, and then your other kid's all the way in Fayetteville, Arkansas, you might go, if we're already giving up the fat paycheck for one kid, why not just do both? And bring them both back here. Elias says Nico's dad is fixing to get a job as a special assistant. Seriously? Maybe. Because, I mean, if he really hops to UCLA, and I mean, I don't know, I'll make my prediction. I bet that's what happens here. I mean, Nico's dad is the GM at UCLA, right? Like, he's basically, he's the decision maker at this point. What in the world? What a weird, what an unbelievable couple of weeks. Just bizarro world. What timeline are we living in right now?
Yeah, I don't know, but I can't wait to see where it goes next.
God, I'm afraid to hop off here. What just insane news is going to drop in the next 10 minutes?
Maybe we should. It might be something
We
negative.
probably, yeah. Well, us getting off of here will fend off something else ridiculous happening.
We don't want to send David Sanders through the portal.
Oh, don't even say. Why would you say that, Zach? Why?
I mean, cut it out. Delete it.
Yeah. We get all right. Well, we got to go edit the podcast. Charlie Burris, Zach Reagan. Thank you so much to everybody who watched, tuned in. I mean, it's tons of people. This was one of the crazier broadcasts we've ever done. My gosh. But thank you to everybody who tuned in, commented. It was a great time. You guys are the absolute best. We couldn't do this without you. You know where to find us. Subscribe, do all of the stuff, listen, watch, yada yada. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will talk to y'all. I mean, I'll say we'll talk to y'all next week, maybe in like next couple days if other crazy stuff keeps happening. But at the latest, we will talk to y'all next week.
See you guys later.